Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new Football Manager experiment where we're taking a look at what would happen if you bankrupted every single team in the Premier League. Now of course bankrupting a team in this game does just dump them into administration, so it's not quite as black and white as the title suggests, but if you watched this series last year you'll know exactly how this experiment is likely to pan out. And what we're going to do this time is a little bit different to what we've done before. We're going to give every single Premier League team a negative £700 million bank balance, but we're also going to tack on a £500 million loan. So you can see for Arsenal at the moment, their finances are that they are in debt. And if we have a look at their club details, you'll see that everything else is exactly the same. But when you get to the finances, you see this massive hole in the budget. It is £711 million of debt that they currently owe to just the bank, I suppose, but that is the same for every single club in the Premier League. They're all in the same position, and the way this will work is that we're going to go forward in time. I think 1 year in today's episode, because there'll be a lot more for us to have a look at. Interesting that Manchester United are just insecure rather than in debt, which is maybe reflective of how much financial clout that they have. But I have also taken away all of their extra income, so the only income they'll get are gate receipts and TV money. Everything else has been taken away, so that includes sponsorship, which should level out the income for different teams. I've also removed all of their sugar daddy owners and everything like that, so there shouldn't be any real automatic fixes. The game is going to have to go out of its way to keep this save alive, because there aren't any of the standard tricks they can do. So we'll see some of the underhand tactics the game uses to fix this problem when it does occur. And the reason that I've had to set it to 700 million for those of you that are interested is that there's actually a cap of 1 billion in either direction, and if you tick over that amount by just £1, the game resets the amount. So it's a bit of a silly thing really, because in modern football, as we saw in our billionaire experiment where we gave every Premier League team we gave a non-league team £1 billion, that money doesn't stretch very far, so they might need to think about expanding this limit. But I'd be interested in your guys' opinions down in the comments of what that limit should be set at. Is 50 billion enough? Is $500 billion enough? Like, where do you set the limit on that? Or should you even at all? So something to think about there down in the comments. But let's go forward 1 year in time now and see how each of the Premier League teams are getting on. Well, we are now 1 year into the future. You can see on the Premier League table exactly how it has panned out. It's good news for us Newcastle fans in that they have managed to finish up in 8th place. Arsenal, the surprising league champions this year, and I think that Salomon Rondon, the league's top goal scorer for West Brom, who finished all the way down in 15th, so it didn't do them an awful lot of good. But you can see that quite a few teams have been deducted points. And I think if we go to the overall screen, it is just the 3 teams. So Brighton, who got relegated, were docked 9 points, which could have actually kept them up. Maybe their goal difference would have seen them go down anyway. West Brom survived despite being docked 9 points. They'd have finished up on 45, so around 12th. And Burnley, who finished in 16th, managed to survive despite the points deduction. So really it's Crystal Palace and Huddersfield that have had absolutely awful seasons. But interesting that Bournemouth and Leicester, the 2 teams to qualify for the Europa League, Chelsea apparently haven't qualified for anything, which makes me think that they have failed financial fair play on initial impressions. But let's go through each of the teams one by one, having a look at their milestones, or landmarks rather. And you can see with Arsenal, they were Community Shield winners, Premier Division champions, but their chairman has left just a few days ago. And they've got a new chairman come in, which I assume is why they have rich finances. If we look at their club details and go to the finances screen, you can see they've got an awful lot of money in the bank there. That's £736 million in the bank account. They've just removed the minus. That's literally all they've done, is removed the minus and gained 20 million. I don't know what's happened there. That's outrageous that something like that can just happen in the game. We've seen this before. They just seem to magic absolute money out of nowhere. And I'm trying to see if there's anything here that details what has happened, but there's nothing on the news screen explaining exactly how Arsenal have got this money. So maybe you guys can speculate down in the comments how Arsenal have managed to find £1.5 billion in 12 months and then gone on to win the league. Now Chelsea also listed as rich at the moment, and if we have a look at their landmarks, you can see that Roman Abramovich actually left back in November, and the new owner came in, but the club did fail financial fair play, which is why they aren't in the Champions League for next season. And when we look at their club details and their finances, you can see they have now got an awful lot of money in the bank, but it is not enough really to keep them going. And I wonder if we go to their general information, if there's anything on here. There's nothing about debt on this screen anymore, when there always used to be a club valuation or something similar that would say how much debt the club was in. They just don't show that anymore, which is a bit frustrating really, that you can't access that information. But you can see that their finances really recovered from where they were before. So the second big team to have that happen. You've then got Manchester City, and I think you can assume what has happened here. They are still a rich club. Their landmarks, they've not actually had a change of ownership. And when you go to their club details and their finances, you can see they've got an absolute bucket load of cash as well. It doesn't make any sense as to where this money is coming from. But all of these big clubs are just turning their finances around like nobody's business. Liverpool, another one that have done the same. And when you look at the landmarks there, you can see that the new chairman came in around the same time as Arsenal's did. Actually, it's pretty much exactly the same day, which is maybe why they've got a similar situation in their finances. But it's a bit weird. Whatever the club is doing, they aren't just wiping out the debt, they're also adding on so much more money, which just doesn't make a lot of sense. And you've got Man City there as well. I think we have to do that in alphabetical order if we want to have a look at the different teams. So let's start with Arsenal, go back to their landmarks page, and then if we drop down to the next team, which is Bournemouth, you can see they got their new owner back in November. And there's a pattern across these dates. The game clearly taking two different styles to fixing a team's finances. And you can see that Burnley have had their money fixed as well. I mean, they haven't got anywhere near as much. They've got £24 million. So it must be the change of owner who is wiping the debt and bringing in all of this new money. You've got Brighton, who actually went into administration in October, came out in December, and were then relegated from the Premier League. There's nothing here about change of ownership for them, but their finances have recovered, but I imagine that is largely because of administration. So they might not have changed their ownership on paper, but they have fixed their finances. And when you look at their profile, they have insecure finances even now, just £28 million to their name. But because we can't see the debt level, we can't see exactly what is going on there. And I'm just checking to see their facilities haven't changed either. But for Burnley, they have. The club youth setup was scrapped. Their youth facilities were sold. They still went into administration before coming out in February, but their youth category rating has been raised to 1. So a bit more damage done to Burnley here. And their finances, again, same position after going into administration, but their facilities, no training facilities and no youth facilities. So that's the first real damage we've seen done to any of these Premier League teams. Chelsea, we've already had a look at with their financial fair play. Crystal Palace sold their facilities as well. New chairman came in and they were still relegated, but their finances, I assume, are absolutely fine. You can see there, £9 million plus in the bank account. It's not doing enough damage here. Everton failed their Euro Cup financial fair play regulations, and again, they're the first team we've seen with a negative balance. They've got minus £92 million in the bank, which is quite interesting. The new chairman coming in are not able to sort out their finances. Sean Dyche now the manager here, but if we have a look at their facilities as well in the club details screen, you can see they still got all their facilities together. But with such a large amount of debt, it'll be interesting to see if they're still in the same position next time around. You then have, who have we got up next? You've got Huddersfield up next. They have had quite a bit go on. They had their youth facilities and setup scrapped. Youth category 2 removed, which is quite interesting. Also got relegated, and a few changes of captaincy too. And in their finances, they are also another team with debt, just under £30 million of it. So not an enormous amount, but heading down into the Championship is not good, and they are in debt. Maybe someone out there can tell me if there's a way that I can find out how much debt the club has without forcing myself to be their manager and taking a look at the club's finances screen, because that's a little bit too invasive for what I want to do right now. Then there's Leicester. They've had a new owner come in as well. If we look at their finances, they are perfectly fine, almost as if they were in administration too. We've seen Liverpool already and Manchester City. Man United won the European Super Cup, but Avram Glazer did leave, and Panos Pavlakis came in under a consortium. They won the Carabao Cup and runners-up in the FA Cup, so not a bad year all in all for Manchester United. And they've got an awful lot of cash to boot, so their new owner pumping in the cash to keep the club afloat. And I think if we look at their finances, they are currently listed as rich, so having absolutely no impact on them whatsoever. Newcastle, we did lose Mike Ashley as owner, thank God, but we did fail the financial fair play, which is why Newcastle aren't in Europe either. But again, their finances pretty much reset to a neutral level. Southampton, nothing changing at Southampton, which is interesting. And if we look at theirs, you can see they are still in debt, but nowhere near as much as it was before. Although, to be fair, it's still £131 million of debt, so there may be another club that we don't need to mess around with ahead of the next episode, if we do another episode. Stoke, again, another one overtaken by a new consortium, and when you look at their club details, you can see that they've got money from the new owners coming in. Swansea, I imagine, are in exactly the same situation, the same amount of money on offer. Stoke, again, had a new owner come in. All of these clubs are going to be in exactly the same position with new owners coming in, and they all seem to have pretty much exactly the same bank details, with the ownership change happening at pretty much exactly the same time. Their move to Wembley was completed. That's the only thing in there for Spurs, but if we look at their finances, they are still absolutely fine, and they haven't even changed their owner, and yet they've got over £600 million in the bank. That makes no sense. How is there not a single landmark on the page for something like that? Watford with a Carabao Cup runners-up, and West Brom went into administration, but their money has been reset to a normal level. So again, I'm not really sure what has gone on here. There's not enough information being provided for us to make a definitive answer. So maybe some of you out there with better knowledge of these things can let us know in the comments what's going on, or at least let's have a little debate about what you think is going on. And if you know where we can find information where the game actually says what is happening, or if there's a way we can look at the actual debt levels of the club without actually taking them over, do let me know. And also, if you want to see another part to this experiment, drop a like on the video, because I know this has maybe been a little bit shorter than you would expect, but I'm without as much information on offer, it's hard to know really what great detail to go into. So maybe next time, I was thinking I might reset all of their money to a different amount, because maybe 700 million is too much debt to give them and the game is just fixing it. What if we maybe knock off every club into about 200 million of debt, because quite a few of them have settled at about 130 million pounds. And if we keep year after year just knocking the debt off the teams, maybe some of the newly promoted club will be able to take advantage of the situation. But at the moment, it's having absolutely no impact whatsoever. So let me know your suggestions for the next episode. But before we do that, I do just want to have a look at the transfers for the Premier League for the final season, because I know some of you guys will be interested in that. And you can see them ranked by the highest fee on the right hand side, and Chelsea spending nearly £59 million on Matthias de Ligt. That was in January. But Man City went and spent nearly £36 million, £37 million in July. So that was when they had no money available. They were still bringing in pretty much immediately players for large amounts of money. Quite a few players did leave, but none of the really big names are gone. They're all still here. Ayew went back to Marseille. But nothing surprising. Their money being spent maybe a little bit down on where you would expect, but there's still big transfer fees involved, especially compared to when we did this experiment last year. A lot of loan deals, as you would expect in the Premier League, more so when the clubs don't have the budgets available to them. But yeah, do drop a like on the video if you want to see a second part to this experiment, but I'm going to need your ideas for what I should do next, because I'm really not sure how to take this forward. Maybe dropping off about 200-300 million pounds, giving them a negative figure for that amount, might be a little bit more sustainable than the 700 million, or maybe we should just set it at a nice even 500 million in debt and see how each team goes. But I'm willing to stick at this experiment and take chunk after chunk from each team until we pretty much root the Premier League out of all the clubs that it's got, because the idea is we want to see these clubs fall into free fall, but at the moment the game is just correcting it for them. So do let me know down below what you think I should do next. Remember to subscribe to the channel as well. These experiment videos usually come out every 2 days. Sometimes there's little delays depending on what's going on in my personal life, because I have a full-time job as well. But you can follow me on Twitter using the link in the description, and support the channel on Patreon if you're feeling generous. But until next time, see ya!